From time to time people have asked me about the sacred sites of this land, of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and what are they and what do they mean and what's their purpose and all of that kind of thing. And it's been quite a journey for me to understand the sacredness of these particular places. And over the years I've come to an understanding that there is such a thing as called the power of place. The power of place. I believe there is a power in certain places that's very special. So I'm going to say a little about that at this moment, and I'm talking about what generally people will call sacred places. They exist not just here, of course, they exist in Egypt, and in fact every culture throughout the planet has had their sacred places. And they had people to look after them and people to keep the wisdom of that place alive. And they are very much in the public eye today because there's more awareness of them. That's why people ask the questions. What's a sacred place? Well, if I speak of the places in this land and my experience, I'll be speaking of places where special things happened in the Māori world, where wānanga was done, where teachings were done, where people gathered at the bright time of the moon to learn of the higher knowledge, the sacred law. And these places weren't chosen because they had a lovely view across to the mountains, or they give you a wonderful view of a lake, or you're on a headland looking out at the sea. They were chosen because of the earth itself and its energy. Again and again, we find that the sacred places here and the sacred places beyond these shores in Europe and South America and Africa and elsewhere are based where the energy of the earth itself has built enormous power. And that power is created by what we'd call earth energy lines, or some people now call them ley lines, that circle the planet and create an amazing grid. And it's where major lines intersect, where major lines cross each other, that we find the sacred places of many of the indigenous peoples. It's where the earth energy gathers on these great earth energy lines. The crossing points are the power points where the sacred sites have been created. In our land, in this land of Aotearoa, New Zealand, when such a site was discovered, it would be honoured. Sometimes by placing a rock there, and always, of course, by saying karakia or prayer, a special karakia or prayer, to tie the land itself to the stars, to a particular star. This is just another example of how the Polynesian people saw themselves as part of the vast universe, not just standing on an island looking out to a distant horizon defined by the sea, but actually looking out to the stars and seeing what all they might be, seeing themselves as in kinship with everything, seeing themselves not touched deeply by the land and the ocean and all around them, but the stars beyond, and all beyond the stars, back to the time of creation itself, which they understood as coming out of the nothingness, the great void, and created by the great song of the universe. They saw themselves as part of everything. So the sacred places were tied to the stars. And those sacred places became places that we might call tapu. places where you went with great respect, where when you left those places you took water to your forehead or sprinkled over your head, honouring the fact that when you went there for learning, for contemplation, for reflection, or whatever, you went there to honour that place and its connections, deep into the earth and out to the stars. You went there understanding that you were stepping into a place of the higher mind, that we might call the sacred place, where the spirit within us reached out to the spirit of all. And when you left, you brought yourself back into the world of people by using the water to make that cleansing, that you might then step back. I suppose it shouldn't be called a cleansing because it's just an honouring, really. It's an honouring of where you've been and where you go. So sacred places then are places of power. They certainly show us the power of place. If we were to go beyond these shores of Aotearoa to, say, England, we know that there are a whole heap of sacred places there that now have great cathedrals or chapels or church places over them. And that's because when Christianity came to England and throughout Europe, they found that the old pagan sites, as they called them, the place where the stone altars were raised and all of that kind of thing, to hold that power of place, where stones were put in circles and all of that kind of thing. We're thinking of Stonehenge, for instance, but there are many, many, many others. The ancestors of those times, they felt that energy. It just was so important in their lives. And they went to those places and honoured those places in a very special way. And again, when we go, say, to England, we find that along a special line that has been researched in the past by Hamish Miller and Barr, his wife, we find that along that line there are a whole series of Michael lines, Michael chapels and Mary chapels along the line. And they're at the crossing point of huge energy lines. It's as if these two lines are travelling along and they're like a caduceus, and every time they cross, and they run for 300 miles, then the pagan ancestors put a marker there, and the church came and put a chapel there for Michael or for Mary, or a church for one or the other. So they marked it, they absorbed that into their realm of holiness, of the sacred, as they understood it in those days. And this great line goes down from France, and it goes through part of France and Greece and Italy, and then on to Greece and right down into the old Sumeria, which is Iran today, and that whole line has a whole series of very famous sacred places, the Temple of Apollo and Athena, and again it's where these great earth energy lines cross. So the earth itself is a ball of energy. It's a great generator of some kind of special energy that creates a network around the planet. And that was understood thousands of years ago and brought into the people's lives, that they might go there and lift themselves into another space, a space of learning, a space where they could walk the higher mind and live a better life.